Hey guys, tonight we fall through space. No parachute, no seatbelt, no warning. Just you, weightless in a shadowy in-between. The air cooler than it should be. And the horizon nowhere to be found. The fall goes on faster, but the ground never comes. Your stomach tightens. The wind rushes, but only in your imagination. Then snap. You're awake, blinking at the ceiling. Heart in your throat, again. You probably won't survive this dream. Not because it's dangerous, but because you always wake up first. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is right now where you are. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through sleep like a movie, extra stuck in someone else's dream sequence. And just when you think you're getting somewhere, bam, you're falling again. Not the cool kind of skydiving fall, where you're strapped to an instructor named Trent who smells like Gatorade and freedom. No, this is the silent, sudden drop, the stomach lurching descent into nothing. Except you never land. You just wake up with your toes curling, and your shoulders scrunched around your ears, like you're trying to become a hoodie. It's such a specific feeling, isn't it? That plummeting moment. You never see the ground. You never make impact. Yet your body reacts as if you've been yeeted off. The Eiffel Tower with no context. And even less hope. Let's slow that down. You're dreaming. Maybe you're walking across a rope bridge or a collapsing escalator, or just stepping off a curb in a dream city version of Cincinnati. Suddenly gravity forgets its chill, and you're weightless but not in the fun, floaty astronaut kind of way. No, this weightlessness is more like your inner organs just realized. There's nothing under them and screamed in unison. And then snap, you're awake. Back in bed, drool somewhere near your ear. Covers tangled like you lost a fight with a ghost. It's a weirdly universal experience. People across cultures, centuries, even those who've never heard of TikTok, report this exact sensation. You fall but you never hit the ground. It's like your subconscious is a prankster with an old-fashioned sense of humor. Historically, people didn't know what to make of this. Ancient Egyptians believed falling dreams were signs of divine punishment. Some indigenous tribes thought your spirit was wandering, and the fall was it snapping back into your body, like a very panicked homing pigeon. Historians still argue whether early dream interpretations were spiritual tools or just ways for people to justify sleeping through goat-herding duties. But either way, the falling sensation has been around as long as, well, dreams, and we still don't really understand why your brain pulls the eject cord before the dream concludes. You might be thinking, okay, maybe it's stress. Sure, maybe. Or maybe your inner ear just decided to gaslight you. One fringe theory suggests that your body interprets tiny muscle relaxations during sleep as a loss of balance, so your brain throws you into a free-fall dream just to test your fight or flight reflex, like a sleep gremlin playing whack-a-mole with your nervous system. In medieval times, people thought dreams, especially scary ones, were caused by demons sitting on your chest. These demons were called incubi and succubi, and they apparently didn't believe in personal space. Falling dreams? Probably just them pushing you off their weird gothic cloud for fun. You roll over and try to go back to sleep, but the adrenaline says, nope, you're wide awake, wondering if you really were falling, or just dreaming of falling, or dreaming that you dreamed of falling. Your brain doesn't care. It's already queued up the next weird episode, featuring your high school gym, teacher in a haunted microwave. And the worst part? You always wake up right before the fall ends. No resolution, no satisfying thud, just a lingering sense of unfinished business and a slightly cricked neck. Here's a mainstream fact. During REM sleep, your brain is nearly as active as it is when you're awake. That means your dreams can feel vivid, detailed, and weirdly specific, like that time you fell into a canyon shaped exactly like your ex's apartment. It's because your brain is basically cosplaying as Spielberg, running wild with no editor. And in that chaos, the fall becomes the ultimate unresolved plotline, a scene that cuts to black just before impact. One curious tidbit. Some people claim that if you do hit the ground in your dream, you die in real life. That's not scientifically backed, of course. It's more urban legend than peer-reviewed journal, but it's creepy enough to make you flinch next time you see pavement looming in a dream. Sleep researchers have tried to document the exact moment of dreamfall wake-up, but it's tricky. The body's response, spiked heart rate, sudden muscle jolt, blink, blink, blink is hard to predict. And let's be real, if you're hooked up to wires and sleeping in a lab, you're not exactly having premium REM adventures. But the sensation lingers. Even now, thinking about it, you feel a tiny echo in your chest. A micro-lurch. As if your body remembers. And it does. Muscle memory, nerve memory, maybe even soul memory, whatever you want to call it. Your system takes notes. Every time you fake fall in a dream, your body files it under surprise skydiving and reacts accordingly. Of course, not everyone falls. Some float, some glide, some just get stuck in elevators with no bottom. But the falling, especially the wake-up before impact kind, is the all-star. It's the classic, the vanilla soft serve of dream weirdness. And that's where we begin. You tumbling, air roaring in ears you don't physically feel, limbs flailing that aren't quite real, the ground waiting, silent, invisible. You wake up again, slightly sweaty, irrationally annoyed, and deeply curious. Why don't you ever hit the ground? Well, we've got a long fall ahead. Tuck in. This mystery's got layers. You lie back down, pillow slightly damp where your cheek panicked itself awake. Your breathing's returning to normal. Barely. But the question lingers, doesn't it? Why does your brain go full Hollywood every time you drift off? Like it's been binge-watching disaster movies and thinks, your subconscious needs more drama. Because here's the quiet truth. Your brain is kind of a drama queen. It's supposed to keep things chill during sleep, regulate hormones, consolidate memories, maybe file some dreams under interesting but unnecessary. But instead, it throws in a fake cliffhanger about plummeting through a glass floor or falling off the edge of a dream. IKEA that never had walls to begin with. It's like your brain is the worst sleepover friend. Always telling a scary story right as you're about to nod off. There's a reason for this overproduction, though. Your brain is designed for pattern recognition and threat detection. It's scanning for lions, cliffs, IRS audits, and unflattering selfies 24/7. Even while you're unconscious. Especially while you're unconscious. Historians still argue whether early human brains evolved to remain slightly alert during sleep because of predators, or because humans can't relax, even when surrounded by Stone Age throw pillows and zero notifications. But one thing's clear, your brain never really clocks out. So when your muscles start to relax, just doing their normal, hey, we're sleeping now routine, your brain sometimes misreads it, like a sleep intern who didn't get the memo. It freaks out. Alert! They're falling. They're slipping into the void. And boom! You're in a dream that's already halfway through its own action sequence. And here's the kicker. It's not even a consistent reaction. Sometimes you'll dream of flying. Sometimes floating. But falling? That's the one that grabs your nervous system like a toddler yanking a fire alarm. There's a mainstream theory for this. The hypnic jerk. Fancy term. Basically, it's a tiny, involuntary muscle spasm that happens right as you start to fall asleep. Harmless. Common. But when it syncs up with the dream world, pure drama. The jerk happens and your brain slaps a story on top of it. Oh, you twitched? Must be falling. Roll credits. And the worst part? Your mind fills in all the visuals instantly. You're on a ladder, a bridge, a crumbling mountaintop fortress shaped, suspiciously like your childhood dentist's office. It's never normal. It's always extra. You know that feeling when you trip on the last step, even though there wasn't a step. Yeah, your dream brain lives there, rent-free. Quirky tidbit. In ancient China, dream manuals warned that falling dreams meant you were being punished by celestial spirits for floating thoughts. That's right. You had too many flaky daydreams. So now your night dreams yeet you off the moon in retaliation. Of course, science has upgraded the explanation. Today we know that during stage 1 sleep, the transition phase between wakefulness and sleep, your brain is still twitchy. It's like trying to power down a laptop while it's doing 3 updates and playing lo-fi beats in the background. The switch between awake and asleep isn't instant. It's glitchy. And sometimes during that glitch, your brain thinks, yes, now is the time for a simulated death plunge. Why? Because that part of your brain that handles fear, the amygdala, is still clocked in, still nosy, still looking for drama, and the falling dream is just its version of a quick emergency drill. If you were falling, it asks smugly, would you even be ready? Some researchers suggest that falling dreams are your brain's way of testing body awareness, like an error-checking system. But others think it's emotional, that it reflects anxiety or loss of control, that deep down, some part of you feels like you're tumbling through something, and your dreams are just translating the vibes. But the interpretations vary wildly. Freud thought falling dreams were about giving in to temptation. Jung believed they were a symbol of transformation, like falling from ego to self. Meanwhile, your brain just wanted a snack and panicked because your left leg twitched. A high-stakes psychological opera triggered by a muscle blip. Classic. And still there's no finale. You never land. You never see the bottom of that elevator shaft, or that hole in the earth that opened under the vending machine in your dream high school. You just wake up startled, unfinished. Which brings us to a fascinating fringe theory. Maybe you don't hit the ground in dreams, because doing so would require your brain to simulate the sensation of death. And it doesn't know how. Like, what would that feel like? There's no data. So instead, your brain pulls the plug, ends the dream. No resolution, no follow-through. Just a fade to consciousness and maybe a stiff neck. Of course, that's just one idea. Some researchers roll their eyes at the drama theory and say it's all just electrical impulses and muscle memory. Others swear there's emotional depth to it. Still, others blame diet, hydration, or the fact that you fell asleep while watching parkour videos on YouTube. But you keep dreaming and falling and waking up before you hit the metaphorical pavement. And every time your brain gets a little jolt of satisfaction, it thinks smugly, another thrilling adventure. No actual danger, just vibes. Like a cat knocking over a plant for the chaos of it. So next time you fall in a dream, just remember your brain's not trying to scare you. It's just performing its nightly soap opera with gravity. You settle deeper into the mattress, which now feels like a slightly suspicious cloud. Your blanket is a cocoon, your pillow a soft conspiracy. Because if you're honest, you don't totally trust your bed right now. After all, gravity is supposed to be your ally, not your secret sleep time prankster. But here's the twist. Your bed, gravity's favorite joke, isn't doing anything. It's just lying there, like a loyal golden retriever made of springs and foam. Meanwhile, your nerves, your muscles, your poor adrenaline-soaked brain are treating it like a trapdoor. That's because your body, during sleep, becomes a dramatic little theater troupe. Even the simplest signals, like, hey, we're lying down now, get interpreted with suspicious intensity. You've got thousands of years of evolutionary survival instincts still baked into your DNA, and those instincts weren't exactly designed for memory foam. So when your muscles relax and your breathing slows and your heart rate drops to Netflix and nappy levels, your brain freaks out a little. Hold up, it says, pacing in its imaginary office. Are we falling? Is this a cliff? Did someone push us off a woolly mammoth? And before logic can kick in, boom, you're plummeting through dream space again. One actual historical curiosity. During the Victorian era, some people believed that falling dreams were caused by spiritual detachment from the body. Not in a horror movie way. More like your soul accidentally popped out for a snack and then panicked on the way back in. There were even rituals like placing lavender under your pillow to tether your spirit so it wouldn't wander too far. Because obviously the best solution to nighttime existential terror is flowers. Science, of course, is less romantic about it. During early sleep, especially stage 1, your body starts to shut down its connection to the outer world. But not all at once. Your sensory systems are still half listening, like nosy neighbors pretending not to eavesdrop. And sometimes a signal gets scrambled. Enter the sensation of falling. That transition phase is wild. It's like when your computer pretends to be asleep but still hums suspiciously, as if it's just waiting for you to leave so it can Google things. Your body's caught between awake and upright, and limp noodle in a dream swamp. So when it hits that midway point, and your balance system in your inner ear doesn't get the usual input from your muscles and joints, it goes full detective mode. No input. Must be falling. Better send a signal to panic. This is where gravity, good old reliable consistent gravity, becomes kind of a jerk. Not because it changes, but because your brain thinks it has. Like waking up on a plane mid-turbulence and momentarily forgetting. You're not in control of anything, including your shoelaces. There's a fringe idea that this reaction is an ancient evolutionary reflex. Long before beds and beanbags, your ancestors probably slept in trees. And if your body started to relax too much, say about to roll out of a branch at 3 a.m., it would send a spasm, a jolt, to keep you from tumbling into saber-tooth country. So now, even though you're just dozing in IKEA's finest, your nervous system acts like you're perched on a eucalyptus branch in the Serengeti. Historians still argue whether this reflex was purely physical or tied to consciousness. Were ancient humans half dreaming of falling and jolting themselves awake? Or was the falling sensation just a convenient byproduct of muscle correction? No one can agree. But either way, your body remembers. Muscle memory lasts longer than logic. And your bed? It just keeps cradling you while your nervous system rehearses emergency protocols, like a fire drill in a dollhouse. Completely unnecessary, but mandatory. Here's a mainstream fact. Your proprioceptive system, basically your sense of body position, is partly disabled during sleep. So your brain has to guess where your limbs are based on outdated signals. If those signals get misread, say, from a leg muscle relaxing too fast, your brain might interpret it as a loss of contact with the ground. Cue the falling dream, and that's how your bed becomes both villain and victim. It's doing its job, supporting you, holding you gently like the world's most indifferent hug, but your brain treats it like a trapdoor to a bottomless pit. Let's not forget the role of the inner ear, the vestibular system. It's like the equilibrium command center, telling your brain when you're upright, spinning, leaning, or flat. But during sleep, it's got limited input. So if your head tilts or your breathing shifts too quickly, or even if the blanket tightens slightly against your chest, the system might report possible fall in progress. Dispatch cinematic sequence immediately. Quirky tidbit. In 1965, researchers tried to monitor the effects of altered gravity on sleep by spinning volunteers in a giant centrifuge. They discovered that the perception of falling changed dramatically under those conditions, and people reported even stranger dreams, including falling up, which honestly sounds like a Pixar movie waiting to happen. But back in your non-spinning bedroom, the perception of falling still has weight. It still matters. Because even though your body's technically at rest, your brain treats the bed like a test. Are you sure we're not plummeting into a well? It asks every single night, with increasing creativity. It's weird, isn't it? You spend your entire day walking around upright, handling gravity like a champ. You don't fall down the stairs most days. You don't randomly drop into holes like a Looney Tunes character. But when night comes, when the lights are off and your body should be off duty, your brain stages a surprise gravity simulation. Every time. And the wildest part? You always believe it. Every time you fall in a dream, your body screams, "This is real," even though it never is. So tonight, as you lie there, hovering on the edge of sleep, maybe you'll feel that flicker, that twitch in your leg, that imaginary tilt in the mattress, and you'll know your brain is just testing the trapdoor again. It's probably not going to open, probably, The room is still. Somewhere in the distance a dog barks. Your blanket is a sleepy fortress tucked just right, but inside your brain little gears are still turning.
Because now you're wondering,
if people have always had falling dreams, have they always been this weird? Have they always woken up with the same startled gasp, the same twist of the stomach? Surprisingly, or maybe not, the answer is yes. Humans have been sleep plummeting for centuries. And what's even more fun, people used to take this stuff very seriously. Back in medieval times, sleep wasn't just a break from chores. It was a whole metaphysical battleground. A place where demons, angels, and questionable snacks from dinner all collided. Falling dreams, in particular, were treated like spooky little postcards from the cosmos. Let's rewind to the 12th century. Picture a monk, let's call him Brother Geoffrey, curled up in a scratchy wool blanket, drifting off after reciting prayers and maybe sneaking a sip of something fermented. Suddenly he dreams that he's tumbling from the top of a stone tower. He never hits the ground, of course. He jerks awake, clutching his rosary. Now Brother Geoffrey doesn't think, my brain misfired during stage 1 sleep. No, he thinks he's being warned. Maybe he sinned. Maybe he doubted. Or maybe that one time he ate an extra apple wasn't as subtle as he thought. Medieval sleep hackers, monks, mystics, scholars, believed falling dreams were signs, coded messages from above and or below. Historians still argue whether monks cataloged these dreams as divine communications or just deeply weird digestion. But either way, they wrote them down. Some even kept dream journals. Like 800-year-old Tumblr blogs for nightmares. Had another falling dream. Definitely need to pray harder. Also cheese at dinner. Never again. Outside the monastery walls, dream interpretation was also a booming business. Fortune tellers and soothsayers claimed they could decode your nightly tumbles. Fell into water? Trouble ahead. Fell from a cliff? Betrayal? Fell and woke up before impact? Divine intervention. No dream damage meant you still had a spiritual safety net. And that was comforting in its own stressful way. In Islamic Golden Age medical texts, scholars like Ibn Sirin wrote extensive guides on dream meanings. A falling dream, especially one without injury, might symbolize a temporary loss of faith, but with a path to redemption. The idea was that your soul, startled by the fall, would cling harder to the divine, like spiritual tough love, just with more imaginary plummeting. Meanwhile, in Hindu and Buddhist traditions, dreams had entire layers of significance. Falling could mean a slip in karma, or an imbalance in your energy centers. It might not even be about you. You could be carrying the karmic baggage of an ancestor who was, say, really bad at balancing checkbooks in a past life. Quirky tidbit. In 17th century Japan, there were samurai who believed that falling in a dream meant you had let down your guard. Not just spiritually, but literally. You'd lost control. You'd become vulnerable. And the only fix? More discipline. More focus, less sleeping in probably. But let's go back to Europe for a moment. The medieval sleep hackers had rituals. If you had a bad dream, especially a falling one, you might be advised to sleep with a crucifix under your pillow, sprinkle salt on your windowsill, or drink an herbal infusion made of mugwort sage, and a dash of hope this doesn't kill me. These rituals weren't just superstition. They were comfort. A way to take control of the uncontrollable. Because sleep back then wasn't protected by blackout curtains and white noise machines. It was unpredictable, dangerous. You could wake up, cold, sick, or not wake up at all. So dreams became tools, warnings, maps, and the dream of falling. That was the flashing red light. Something's wrong, it whispered. Pay attention. Even royalty took note. King Charles VI of France, yes, the one who thought he was made of glass, had recurring dreams of falling. His advisors brought in astrologers, physicians, even dietitians to interpret them. Spoiler, nothing helped. But it gave everyone something to do. Now fast forward. Renaissance thinkers start leaning more toward the body is weird, then God is angry. But even then, dream manuals kept printing falling dream entries because people kept asking. They still do. If falling in your dream has been a mystery for 1,000 years, you better believe it's showing up on Reddit today. But here's the thing. Despite all the scary stuff, All the ominous omens and whispered warnings, people also learned to use their dreams. Some monks practice dream control. They train themselves to wake up before the fall. Not just to avoid fear, but to feel closer to heaven. Like getting to the brink of the unknown and pulling back at the last second. Kind of poetic, really. There's even a record of a 14th century mystic named Marjorie Kempe who claimed that in her dreams, she would fall into darkness. But instead of waking up in terror, she'd feel warmth. She believed it was the arms of angels catching her. That her fall wasn't punishment, but surrender. And maybe that's a nice way to think about it. Maybe the dream isn't a threat. Maybe it's just your brain letting go, trying to test the idea of trust, of weightlessness, of falling without consequence. Sure, it doesn't feel peaceful when you wake up clawing at your duvet, but deep down there's something ancient and shared in that sensation, something that connects you to monks and mystics, samurai and scholars. You've all fallen in dreams. You've all woken up gasping, and tomorrow night, you probably will again. But maybe next time you'll remember Marjorie. And think, what if the fall is just a handoff? The night deepens. Your breath evens out. But somewhere in the dark theater of your brain, the projector whirs back to life. It's showtime again. And you know the format now. Act 1. Ordinary dream nonsense. Shopping in a maze-shaped IKEA. Riding a llama through your college final. Then Act 2. Plummet. But here's a fun twist. Your dreams are operating on a schedule. Not just vibes. Not pure chaos. Actual measurable cycles. Welcome to the world of sleep architecture, where your subconscious is basically writing soap operas in REM bursts and your body is the set. Each night you go through about 4 to 6 sleep cycles, each lasting roughly 90 minutes. That's like your brain running multiple episodes in a weird dream anthology. And each cycle has different stages, non-REM and REM, light and deep, starring roles and dramatic exits. Now here's the thing. You don't usually fall in your dreams during those early deep stages. Nope. The falling dreams, the ones with flair, tend to happen during REM sleep. That's rapid eye movement. The part where your brain decides to throw realism out the window and stage interpretive dance scenes about tax audits and flying horses. During REM, your brain is lit up like a Christmas tree. It's when most vivid dreaming occurs and also when your body is the most paralyzed. Like full lockdown. Your muscles are intentionally shut down so you don't act out your dreams and accidentally suplex your bedside lamp. But here's the curious part. The longer you sleep, the longer your REM periods become. The first one might be 10 minutes. By cycle 3 or 4, you're getting 30, maybe 45-minute stretches of high-definition madness, which means if you're going to fall dramatically into an endless chasm, it's likely to happen in the middle of the night. Not right after you doze off. Historians still argue whether ancient accounts of visionary dreams came from early REM sleep phases or something more hallucinogenic. Some medieval folks were mixing opiates with wine, which is, let's just say, a fast track to bizarre REM intrusions. But modern science is pretty set on this. Falling dreams aren't evenly distributed. They're not casual. They sneak in when your brain is juggling the most chaotic stories, deep into the night when your dreams have more room to stretch and get experimental. Mainstream fact alert. REM sleep is associated with increased activity in the visual, motor, and emotional areas of the brain. But the logic centers, they take a back seat. That's why in a falling dream, you never pause to question why the sidewalk turned into quicksand, or why gravity just turned itself up to 11. Your dream logic is on vacation. It doesn't ask questions, it just falls with you. So what's the structure of a typical falling dream episode? You start somewhere relatively grounded. Maybe you're on a ledge, or a ladder, or bizarrely often, standing in a field that just disappears. Then you feel a shift, that internal tilt, a sudden down pull. Your stomach flips, your perspective drops, and then void. Sometimes there's context, a visual trigger. Sometimes there's just a feeling, a floor that vanishes, a sense that something gave way. Either way, the story always cuts off before impact. You flinch, you wake. Curtain drop. It's a tight little act, and your brain loves it. Not because it's trying to freak you out, but because it's deeply tied to how dreams evolve. In REM, your mind takes loose threads from your day, memories, worries, sensations, and spins them into surrealist tales. But it's working under weird constraints, time limits, energy limits, no ability to run actual tests. So instead of logic, it relies on metaphor. And falling, that's one of the strongest symbols out there. Loss of control, vulnerability, transition, even just pure kinetic chaos. Your brain reaches for it like an overused stock sound effect. Dream getting too quiet? Toss in a fall. Fringe theory time. Some sleep researchers believe that falling dreams follow a kind of emotional arc, beginning tension, escalation, and incomplete resolution. The theory says your subconscious intentionally avoids a conclusion. Why? Because hitting the ground would be final, and your brain isn't a fan of finality. It likes ambiguity. Open loops. That's how it keeps processing. It's like your mind is a Netflix writer who refuses to write the last scene of the season. Just leaves you on a cliffhanger, literally, so you keep watching. Quirky tidbit. In 1977, a British study found that participants awakened during REM sleep after falling dreams had more lingering cortisol spikes than those who dreamed of, say cooking or dancing. Translation? Even if it's fake, the drama sticks with you. Your brain treats dream peril like it almost matters. Almost. And maybe that's why falling dreams are so unforgettable. They have pacing, timing, even sound design. Have you noticed the dreams don't usually sound like anything? But the falling ones, you always feel wind, or hear a rush, or just sense a kind of roaring silence. It's cinematic and structured. Because your dreams aren't just blips, they're stories. And like any good story, the arc matters. So now as your eyes grow heavier, your breath slower, and your limbs warm under the blanket, remember your brain is probably queuing up its next segment. It's choosing scenery, drafting plot, casting shadows, and just maybe somewhere in cycle 3 it'll queue up a fall. You'll teeter at the edge of some dream staircase or rooftop concert or glowing chasm, and your brain will whisper, "Let's see what happens this time." Then you'll fall. And just before the end, just like always, you'll wake up. You're drifting now, eyes closed, blanket slightly crooked, but just right. The air hums gently, and as you float on that soft edge between thought and nothingness, your brain, ever the nighttime playwright, is prepping another scene. But before the curtain rises, let's look at something a little older, a little deeper, because falling dreams aren't just modern oddities or sleep cycle hiccups. They've been part of humanity's dream life for thousands of years. And across cultures, the imagery shows up again and again. You think your dreams are original, but ancient folklore would like a word. Let's start with the Greeks. In their mythology, dreams were delivered by spirits called oniroi, children of the night goddess Nyx. They emerged each dusk from the land of sleep, flowing through the gates of dreams, one of ivory for false dreams, and one of horn for true visions. If you fell in your dream, it wasn't just nonsense. It was seen as a warning or omen, possibly a literal descent into the underworld. Hades wasn't just a place, it was an ever-lurking metaphor. And a falling dream? That was your backstage pass. Historians still argue whether the Greeks interpreted dream falling as a punishment from the gods or a slip of the psyche into forbidden knowledge. But whatever the case, they definitely didn't treat it like a random bedtime glitch. Fast forward to Norse mythology. The old sagas mention dreams of falling into fjords or bottomless oceans, seen as signs of dishonor, broken oaths, or spirits meddling where they shouldn't. A warrior dreaming of a fall might fear defeat in battle. A farmer? Crop failure. A priest? Some unsettling afterlife audit. Across the ocean, Native American traditions often viewed falling dreams as moments when your spirit momentarily detached from your body. Not unlike some Eastern traditions, the sensation was seen as a tug-of-war between the waking self and the dream self, an imbalance, a reminder to ground yourself. Sometimes elders would suggest sleeping with a stone under the bed, or burning certain herbs to keep your spirit from wandering too far, like setting up spiritual seatbelts. And in African folklore, particularly among the Ashanti people of Ghana, falling dreams were sometimes linked to ancestors trying to send warnings. The logic was simple: if you were falling, you were too high, too proud. Someone needed to pull you back down. Maybe it was grandma. Maybe it was guilt. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some South American tribes believed that if you dreamed of falling, it was because your soul was trying to follow the moon and failing. A literal gravitational mismatch. You tried to fly, but the moon said, "Not tonight." Meanwhile, in medieval Islamic texts, falling dreams often carried moral weight. Ibn Sirin, famous dream interpreter of the 8th century, had a whole section in his writings about falling. To dream of a fall from a high place could mean a fall from social standing or a betrayal from a trusted friend. But if the dreamer got back up in the vision, redemption was coming. Which brings us to a broader point. In folklore, the fall is rarely just a fall. It's a moral, a warning, a reflection. You don't just drop, you're cast down, or brought low, or reminded you're not quite in control, like the universe tapping you on the shoulder and whispering, "Steady there, friend." It's kind of dramatic, yes, but dreams have always been treated like private myths, little narratives only you can decode. And falling? That's one of the few symbols that shows up just about everywhere. It's a shared metaphor, even before we had words like REM or cortisol spike or oops, I napped too hard. Mainstream fact time. Dream researchers in the 20th century cataloged thousands of common dream themes. Falling ranked consistently in the top 5, right up there with being chased, showing up late, and going to school in your underwear, which is not the legacy we dreamed of, but here we are. One theory says that falling dreams persist across cultures because the physical sensation is so universal. You don't need language to understand it. Your body knows what falling feels like. And your brain? It remembers. Stores that panic in a little box marked "use for later." But it's more than just panic, isn't it? Sometimes falling dreams aren't scary at all. Sometimes they're quiet, slow, peaceful even. You're drifting downward like a leaf, or floating through space, or descending into an endless pool with no splash. And you don't flinch. You just observe. You feel a softness in the descent, like it's not punishment, it's permission to let go, to surrender. Those are the rarer kind. The ones you might not even remember in the morning. But they're real, and they hint at something gentler beneath. The folklore, that falling isn't always about danger. Sometimes it's about transformation. You don't come back from those dreams gasping. You return like you took a long elevator ride through the sky. No bottom, no fear. Just gravity being weird and your mind taking a slow motion break from cause and effect. Maybe that's why these stories exist across every continent. Because no matter where you're from, no matter the language or era, people have dreamed of falling. And they've always wondered the same thing. Why didn't I land? What does it mean? Should I be afraid? Or is the fall just part of being human? So you drift again, your breathing softens, and somewhere across centuries of sleepers, you join the chorus of those who fell before you. All of them asking the same questions. All of them waking up just before the answer. There's a moment right before you wake, when everything feels paused, not frozen but suspended, like the world's holding its breath just for you. That's the moment when your dream self is still midair, limbs flailing slightly, brain confused, and the ground still not there. You've felt it before. You know the scene. You're in freefall, plummeting towards something. Concrete, water, glowing mist, a suspiciously deep IKEA showroom, and then your eyes snap open. No thud, no impact. Just sheets, and maybe one sock off for some reason. And that right there, that final moment of tension, is the star of tonight's act. Let's talk about the thud that never comes. Dreams are often chaotic. They blur beginnings, skip middles, loop endings. But with falling dreams, the structure is weirdly consistent. You fall hard. You never land. It's like your subconscious has a standing policy. No splats, no smackdowns, no dream floor engagements of any kind. Why? Why is your brain so committed to the cinematic drop-off without payoff? One mainstream theory says your brain wakes you before you hit the ground because it's protecting you. Not from death necessarily, but from shock. See, when your dreams feel too real, when they reach a certain level of perceived danger, your nervous system hits the eject button. Waking up becomes an emergency protocol, like a fire drill but messier. Historians still argue whether dream culture in early civilizations considered the missing impact symbolic or practical. Some believe the fall never finished because the soul returned to the body too soon. Others thought the absence of landing meant the danger had passed, or was never real to begin with. Modern science likes a more biological explanation. When you fall in a dream, especially in a heightened REM cycle, your body mimics certain panic responses. Adrenaline rises, heart rate spikes, but because your body is also paralyzed, thank you, sleep paralysis mechanism. The illusion of imminent trauma causes a cognitive dissonance. Your brain short circuits. And the fastest way to resolve the tension? Wake up, break the spell. Cut to credits. Here's a quirky tidbit. In an old superstition from rural Germany, it was said that if you ever did land in a dream, you'd die in your sleep. Not just from fright, but because your soul had completed its descent and couldn't find its way back. Basically, if your dream self got too efficient with gravity, you paid the price, which feels harsh, but it's probably nonsense. We know now that people can, in rare cases, hit the ground in dreams and continue dreaming. Sometimes the floor is just another level, another scene. You hit the bottom and then what? You bounce. You get up. You order a bagel. Dreams are weird like that, but most of the time your brain doesn't bother. It's far more dramatic to leave things hanging. Think of it like a bad soap opera. Nobody really wants closure. The tension is the whole point. And from a neuroscience perspective, falling dreams activate multiple brain regions at once. The visual cortex to simulate the scene, the limbic system to stir up emotion, and even parts of your vestibular system to simulate motion. But your body's not moving. It's locked down. This mismatch between sensation and paralysis may be why you wake. At the peak of dream intensity, your brain just can't resolve the conflicting data. It's like your senses are yelling in 5 different languages, and the manager has to shut the store down. But you, the dreamer, don't notice any of this. All you feel is that final moment. Air rushing, heart hammering, the ground swelling beneath you, and then bam, you're back in your bed, disoriented, maybe annoyed, possibly hungry. What's most fascinating is how your dream knows where to stop. You don't decide to wake up. You don't pull the plug manually. Your brain just yanks you out of the simulation right before impact. Every time. Fringe theorists have a field day with this. Some claim it's evidence that dreams are messages from alternate dimensions, and if you land, you stay there. Others suggest your mind simply doesn't have the data to simulate death, so it exits the scenario before trying. Like it's sorry, can't compute landing physics aborting mission. More grounded voices say it's not death your brain avoids, it's just the stress spike. Your brain's job during sleep is maintenance, not trauma. It's trying to sort memories, consolidate information, run emotional diagnostics, not send you hurtling into dream asphalt at Mach 3. So it keeps the danger implied, not delivered. Think about that for a second. Your brain designs an elaborate story, builds up suspense, cues the fall, and cuts to black. Like a director who knows horror is more powerful in the unseen. What's scarier, the monster you see or the one that never quite shows up? Now here's a mainstream fact to anchor this. Studies using EEG machines and REM monitoring have shown that dreamers often wake up milliseconds before the peak event in their dream. Whether that's a fall, a crash, or even a punch, your brain anticipates the climax and ejects early, like a nervous pilot avoiding turbulence. And this, oddly enough, is why we remember these dreams more vividly. Emotional intensity cements memory. That half second before the crash, It burns itself into your neural pathways like a weird little scar. And yet, no matter how many times it happens, you still hope for resolution. Just once to see what's at the bottom. To land to know. But your brain doesn't want that. It's not a fan of tidy endings. It prefers the open loop, the unfinished sentence, the thud that never comes. So next time you wake up mid-fall, heart racing, pillow half on the floor, just remember, your mind chose that moment for a reason. It left you dangling because that's where the mystery lives. And sleep, after all, is nothing but mystery. You're in that strange middle place now, half asleep, half aware. Limbs heavy, but your mind still flickering. A twitch in your leg. A rustle of sheets. That uncanny feeling that you're present, but also maybe not quite here. And in that stillness, something weird happens. You can't move. Your eyes flutter, but your arms stay pinned. Your brain is awake, or at least it thinks it is, but your body is on a totally different schedule. Welcome to sleep paralysis, the most misunderstood guest at the sleepover. Except in this dreamscape, it's not terrifying. Tonight we're making it cozy. That's right, paralysis, but make it soft, fuzzy, slightly scented like lavender. Sleep paralysis has been scaring the socks off people for centuries, but beneath all the screaming shadows and spooky, folklore is a surprisingly elegant biological mechanism. It's your body doing its job, keeping you safe from yourself. Because during REM sleep, as we've already explored, your muscles are gently shut down, temporarily disconnected. It's like your brain flips the do not disturb switch on your motor system. Mainstream fact, this condition is called REM-atonia, and it prevents you from acting out your dreams. Without it, you'd be flailing, kicking, possibly inventing accidental parkour on your nightstand. So instead, your body is gently wrapped in stillness, while your mind goes off chasing giant ducks and dream staircases that lead to nowhere. But sometimes, especially during transitions between sleep stages, your mind wakes up before your body does. That's when the fun begins. You lie there, aware, conscious, present, but your limbs aren't responding. It's like trying to type on a keyboard that forgot it exists. You might feel pressure on your chest, or hear whispers, or sense movement in the room. Some people report floating. Others say they feel pulled downward, like gravity is trying to reclaim them. Now add in a dream fall from a few minutes ago. You just jolted awake, except you didn't. You're in limbo. You're stuck between the drop and the landing, and your body is out of service. In medieval folklore, sleep paralysis was chalked up to nighttime demons, incubi and succubi who sat on your chest and stole your breath. These creatures were blamed not just for sleep terrors, but for those eerily vivid sensations of falling, gasping, and being held down. Historians still argue whether those reports were literal beliefs or poetic descriptions of the experience. But across Europe, Africa, and Asia, stories popped up of dark figures who haunted sleepers at the edge of consciousness. In Japan, it's called kanashibari, a spirit binding. In Newfoundland folklore, it's the old hag. In some Inuit cultures, it's caused by a shamanic spirit visiting the dreamer. Basically, humans looked at sleep paralysis and said, definitely haunted. No other explanation, but science offers a calmer view. It's just REM-atonia sticking around too long. A small delay in reactivating your motor system. A bug in the boot-up sequence. Quirky tidbit. A study once suggested that sleep paralysis might be more common in people who sleep on their backs. Something about how airways and muscle pressure interact. So technically, your spine might be staging a haunted house, while your dreams are still cleaning up after the fall. But here's where it gets oddly comforting. Some people enjoy sleep paralysis, really. Not the terrifying shadow being version, but the gentle kind. The ones who report floating, not falling. Who describe the feeling as being wrapped in weighted air. They say it's peaceful. A pause. A moment of total stillness. Like being inside a snow globe of silence. Some lucid dreamers even seek it out. They use that state, the one where your body sleeps but your mind hovers, to slide into dream control. To climb back into the narrative. To choose the next scene. Imagine this, you're dreaming that you fall. The familiar rush. The invisible ground. But instead of waking up with a gasp, you drift into that paralyzed calm. You're weightless, suspended, aware, and then you think, what if I fly instead? And just like that, the dream shifts, you rise. That's the promise of sleep paralysis when it's embraced, not feared. When it becomes a bridge, not a trap. Of course, not everyone experiences it so poetically. For many, it's terrifying. The immobility, the hallucinations, the fear that you've been locked in your own body. But the more we understand it, the less monstrous it becomes. Your body isn't betraying you. It's protecting you, making sure you don't flail off the bed mid-dream. Your mind isn't broken. It's just online before your muscles get the memo. So next time you wake up and feel frozen, remember, you're safe. You're whole. You're just visiting that liminal zone where sleep and wake shake hands awkwardly. And if you listen closely, you might hear the tail end of your last dream echoing in that silence. A whisper of wind, the memory of a fall, and the gentle hum of a body rebooting itself. It's not scary. It's transitional, like the pause between heartbeats, or the quiet between waves. So lie still. Let the moment pass. You're not falling anymore. You're floating. You blink once, maybe twice. The world around you is soft again, familiar. But the question lingers in your newly stilled thoughts, doesn't it? Why is no one sure? You've spent the last 8 sections exploring the strange ritual your brain repeats again and again, night after night, falling, flinching, waking. Yet somehow, even after all that dreaming, all that scientific probing, there's still no neat little answer tied up in a sleep-colored bow. And that's because, surprise, science can't agree on this one. That's right. The brightest minds in sleep research have spent decades peeking at slumbering subjects through electrodes and EEG printouts and still haven't cracked the code. Falling dreams are annoyingly uncooperative, like trying to film a ghost that keeps ducking behind your furniture. Some experts say falling dreams are purely physical, tied to sleep stage transitions and muscle relaxation. Others insist they're emotional, triggered by anxiety or subconscious dread. Some blame stress, others blame snacks. Historians still argue whether the falling dream is a leftover from our tree-dwelling ancestors or a byproduct of modern overstimulation. But the evidence? Patchy at best. Hypnic jerks, yes. REM cycles, sure. But the fall itself? Still an open file. One popular theory is that falling dreams are a misinterpreted sensorimotor signal. Basically, your brain is trying to guess what your body's doing, and sometimes it gets it wrong. During that sleepy moment when your body relaxes too quickly, the brain gets confused and fills in the blanks with a narrative, and for some reason that narrative is always gravity-related panic. Mainstream sleep researchers like to point out that hypnic jerks, those sudden muscle twitches, happen most often during stage 1 sleep, right when your brain is transitioning into unconsciousness. Combine that with a wandering imagination and what do you get? A dream where the floor disappears, again. But then there are the psychologists, the ones who insist that your falling dream is actually an emotional Rorschach test. They claim it's about insecurity, or control, or the creeping awareness that your life is spiraling, and you forgot to send that email. It's internal vertigo, a silent scream, your brain flailing around in symbolic metaphors because it doesn't know how to say,
Hey, we're a little overwhelmed, pal.
And then you've got the Jungians, the archetype crowd. They argue that falling is a descent into the subconscious, a symbolic return to the self. You're not failing, you're journeying inward. You're letting go of the ego. Or, just falling off a dream trampoline again. Fringe theorists join the party too. Some suggest that falling dreams are echoes from alternate timelines, that every choice you don't make branches into a parallel universe. And sometimes during sleep, you catch a fragment of a version of yourself that fell and didn't get up. It's compelling, mysterious, completely unprovable, but comforting in its own weird way. Then there's the neurology team, the ones buried in fMRI scans and neural mapping. They point to increased activity in the visual, cortex and vestibular system during falling dreams. that these areas light up even though your body is still.
Meaning your brain simulates motion perfectly without any real-world input.
They argue that your brain doesn't need to feel you falling. It can imagine you falling with such clarity that the body reacts anyway. That it's not about actual balance but perceived imbalance, like virtual reality, but involuntary and free with every REM subscription. Quirky tidbit. In a 2010 symposium, sleep scientists from 5 different countries debated whether dream content was emotionally driven or randomly assembled. When asked specifically about falling dreams, one Dutch researcher said, "Sometimes the brain just makes noise. Not every thud has a meaning." Bold words considering the room. So who's right? Well, maybe all of them. Or none of them. Because the beauty and frustration of dream science is that it's part data, part guesswork, part polite academic shrugs. Dreams are slippery. You can't freeze them, bottle them, replay them. You can't always even remember them properly. And when you do, it's in fragments. Feelings, scenes, the end of a sentence, a hallway made of pancakes. Falling dreams are especially tricky because they blur the line between physical reaction and emotional metaphor. Your body does something, a twitch, a jerk, a momentary misfire, and your mind attaches meaning. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe your brain writes the story and your body just acts it out. Either way, the fall happens, over and over. And no one, not neurologists, not monks, not Reddit dream analysts, can say for certain why it always ends the same. You wake, and maybe that's the answer, or maybe it's the start of the next question. Because as much as science has tried to measure sleep, to count the stages and graph the patterns, it still can't quite explain why the falling dream feels so real, why your stomach drops, why your eyes snap open, why you remember that one. When all the others fade like fog, it's mystery, not failure, not lack of data, just the brain doing what it does best when no one's watching, making up stories, leaping without landing, and sometimes leaving just enough uncertainty to keep you curious. So go ahead, let science debate it. Let them file their papers and frown thoughtfully into microscopes. You've already lived the moment, and you'll live it again. Your breath is slow now, warm and steady. Your body has melted into the mattress, and your limbs have taken on that familiar marshmallowy weight. And yet, somewhere in the far corners of your nervous system, the twitch is coming. You don't plan it. You don't ask for it. But it happens, always right on cue. A sudden jolt, a leg kick, a shoulder shrug, sometimes a full body shudder, like your spirit tripped over a dream. Pebble and face planted back into your own ribcage. We call them hypnic jerks or sleep starts. But let's be honest, they're dream jump scares. They show up just as you're slipping into the first stage of sleep. You're floating peacefully through the edge of unconsciousness, maybe dreaming about roller skating with your childhood pet turtle, and then bam, your leg kicks like it's auditioning for a dance battle, or your arm flinches like it's trying to punch gravity in the face. Hypnic jerks are incredibly common. Studies estimate that up to 70% of people experience them, but no one knows exactly why they happen. It's another one of those sleep mysteries with plenty of theories, but zero firm conclusions. Mainstream fact, hypnic jerks usually occur during the transition from wakefulness to stage 1 sleep. That's when your breathing slows, your temperature drops, and your brain is trying to shift gears from survive the day to wander through the subconscious with absolutely no rules. One theory says it's a simple misfire. Your brain misinterprets muscle relaxation as falling, so it sends a last-minute catch-yourself signal, like a neural safety harness snapping tight at the worst possible time. A quick, jarring correction for a fall that isn't happening. Another theory? Evolution. Historians and anthropologists suggest that when early humans slept in trees, yes, trees, these sudden jerks were a survival reflex. Your body would jolt awake if it felt you slipping off a branch. So really, every time you spasm in bed, you're honoring your inner tree hugger. Historians still argue whether that branch-based theory is just a romantic guess, or if there's real evolutionary memory in those flails. But the idea has traction. Falling from a tree could mean death. Better to overreact than to plummet into a saber-toothed breakfast buffet. Then there's the emotional theory that hypnic jerks are tied to stress or anxiety. When your brain can't quite wind down, it overreacts to the process of sleep itself. A simple muscle relaxation gets interpreted as a danger signal, and your body responds like it just got pushed off a cliff. Let's be honest, it feels like that. The falling is so sudden, so vivid, that for a split second your whole body forgets where it is. It's like the dream world hits the emergency brakes and you lurch forward into wakefulness. Slightly sweaty, mildly offended, very confused. And the dreams that come with these jerks? Oh, they're specific. You're tripping over invisible steps, tumbling off ledges, falling out of chairs that didn't exist until that moment. 1 second you're walking through a calm dreamscape. The next you've been ejected from a second story window by a gust of wind made of anxiety. Quirky tidbit. In some folklore traditions, hypnic jerks were thought to be tiny possessions, a mischievous spirit poking you to test your awareness. In Filipino mythology, the bangungot, a type of nightmare demon, was blamed for sudden spasms and sleep disturbances. They believed that eating too much before bed attracted these spirits, which honestly sounds like your stomach agreeing with ancient wisdom. In more modern spiritual circles, some say hypnic jerks are your soul re-entering your body after an astral voyage. Like you forgot to knock before coming home and startled yourself mid-dream. The internet, of course, has opinions. Reddit threads and YouTube comments are full of people comparing their nightly flails. Last night I kicked myself awake so hard I scared my cat off the bed. I slapped the wall in my sleep and woke up apologizing to it. I dreamt I was falling into a cake and woke up kicking the air like a drowning possum. Classic. But here's the funny thing. Most of us don't mind hypnic jerks. Sure, they're weird, sometimes annoying, occasionally dramatic. But we've accepted them as part of the sleep routine. The last boss battle before unconsciousness, the final thud before dreams truly begin. There's even something a little cozy about them. Like your body doing a systems check. Hey, are we asleep yet? Nope, try this twitch. They're a signal, a pause, a reminder that your brain and body are easing into alignment, even if that process is occasionally clumsy. And in a strange way, hypnic jerks are cousins to your falling dreams. Both trigger a sudden sense of motion. Both yank you from deeper sleep. Both are mysterious, misunderstood, and just a bit theatrical. But unlike your dreams, the jerk has a physical result. You move, you wake. You check your pulse, your phone, your dignity. Then you sigh, pull the blanket back up, and hope it doesn't happen again. Spoiler, it probably will. Still, there's comfort in knowing you're not alone. Millions of people are out there right now, kicking, flailing, jolting themselves back to wakefulness before settling into sleep again. It's like a secret nightly dance we all forgot we were part of. So the next time you feel that twitch, that electric snap of motion from nowhere, don't panic. It's just your body checking in. Just your soul hiccuping. Just gravity whispering, still here. You exhale softly, eyelids fluttering, body now fully adrift in that quiet dark ocean of sleep. But then unexpectedly you start falling again. Maybe this time it's down a staircase in an abandoned mall. Maybe it's off the roof of your middle school. Maybe you're falling through clouds that look suspiciously like your laundry pile. And as you plummet, a strange question forms like a ripple. What if it's not gravity? What if it's guilt? It's a bit dramatic? Sure. But dreams aren't known for subtlety. There's a school of thought, popular with psychologists and poets alike, that says falling dreams aren't really about heights or physics or neurons. They're about conscience. That somewhere, buried beneath all your well-managed emails and low-sodium diets, something in you is wrestling with you. Mainstream psychology has long considered falling dreams to be symbols of loss of control. You're slipping. You're failing. You've missed a step, literal or metaphorical. But some researchers go deeper. They suggest that falling dreams are an emotional collapse, a sign your subconscious is staging a private intervention. Historians still argue whether this guilt-based, Interpretation is a modern invention or a remnant of older religious frameworks. In many traditions, dreams of falling were seen as punishment, moral or divine. You fell in the dream because you deserved to. You messed up, broke a rule, hid a truth, stole a goat, whatever your era's equivalent of a moral oopsie was. In Christian folklore, falling in dreams often paralleled the myth of the fall of man. Adam, Eve, that whole apple incident. The idea that to fall was to be cast out, disgraced, a kind of metaphysical exile. Similarly, in Dante's Inferno, hell isn't a fiery pit you climb into. It's a descent. The deeper you fall, the more severe your sins. Falling is a journey into yourself and not always a pleasant one. But not all traditions see it as punishment. In some Buddhist and Hindu philosophies, the fall represents detachment. You're letting go of illusions of ego. The fall isn't failure, it's freedom. Sure, it feels scary, but that's just the part of you that doesn't like change. The old self clutching at the cliff's edge, while the wiser part dives willingly. Quirky tidbit. Carl Jung once claimed that falling in dreams could represent a descent from the conscious to the unconscious mind, a journey inward, toward what he called the shadow self. That's the part of you that holds repressed desires, fears, guilt, and all the awkward things you said in middle school. The fall was, in essence, a forced meeting with your emotional baggage. And the fascinating part? Your body responds to dream guilt the same way it responds to dream physics. Your heart races. Your stomach flips. Your breathing changes. The fall feels real, even if it's made of metaphor. Think about it. Have you ever had a falling dream during a stressful time in your life? Right before a big test? After a difficult conversation? In the aftermath of an oops, forgot to text back for 3 weeks kind of moment? There's something about emotional weight that translates into dream descent. As if the psyche thinks, can't fix it while awake? Fine, we fall about it instead. One fringe theory suggests that falling dreams are your mind's version of hitting the reset button. Like emotional defragging. You feel heavy. Your mind creates a scenario where you become weightless. You fall, you lose control. And then, like clockwork, you wake up. Clean slate. Temporary reboot. The guilt? Still there, but softened by the drama of the dream. Of course, this isn't always the case. Not every falling dream is triggered by inner turmoil. Sometimes your brain is just weird and you ate cheese too late. But in those moments when your dream fall hits different, when it feels personal, you might just be watching your subconscious hold a mirror. It's not trying to scare you. It's trying to confess. And sometimes the dream even provides a moment of clarity. There are stories of people who report falling in dreams, and just before they wake, they accept the fall. They stop fighting it, stop flailing. They let themselves go limp. And instead of waking up in a sweat, they rise into the next dream scene, floating, lighter. It's as if their brain said, okay, you processed something. Now we move on. There's something deeply human in that. The idea that you carry weight all day, regrets, missteps. The time you interrupted someone and pretended it was a Wi-Fi glitch. And then at night your mind drops it all. Literally. In free fall. So if tonight you find yourself slipping again, off the edge of a dream cliff into an endless void, or down an escalator that turns into a waterfall, maybe ask yourself, what are you holding on to? Or maybe, what are you afraid to let go? Because the fall doesn't always mean failure. Sometimes it means forgiveness. You're deeper now, riding that mellow lull of long sleep. Not quite aware, not entirely unaware. Just drifting. Your thoughts melt together like crayons on a radiator. Colors bleeding into each other. Storylines slipping out of sequence. It's quiet, but you're not alone. Because now the dream's getting crowded. Figures appear, silent, familiar, strange. People with names you half remember. Rooms you've never seen but somehow recognize. And in the middle of all this weirdness, always there's you. Falling again. But this time, let's look around. Who built this bizarre little stage? Tonight, you meet the dream architects of history. And spoiler, it's not just Freud and a bunch of dusty guys with beards. Throughout the centuries, brilliant and, let's face it, very sleep-deprived, Individuals have tried to understand and control the dream, especially the falling kind. Because what better way to feel powerful than by rewriting your own dream's gravity? Take Leonardo da Vinci. Yes, that Da Vinci. Among his countless notebooks filled with flying machines and speculative anatomy sketches, he also made notes on sleep and dreams. He believed dreams were connected to subtle, bodily movements and shifts in consciousness. Falling, he mused, might reflect imbalances, not just physical but spiritual. Because of course Da Vinci made gravity sound poetic. And then there's Nikola Tesla, the electric showman. He claimed to function on just 2 hours of sleep per night and often experienced vivid dreams of falling, floating, and, interestingly, exploding. He thought dreams were signals like radio waves, coming from a different realm of consciousness. Whether you believe in that or not, Tesla basically considered dream gravity a long-distance call. Historians still argue whether these dream experiments were genuine, science, or just eccentric obsessions, but it's clear, the smartest minds couldn't stop thinking about the dream fall. In the early 1900s, Sigmund Freud took a swing at it. He believed that falling in dreams represented giving in to suppressed desires, not just moral slip-ups, but a literal fall from restraint. Freud thought you didn't just stumble off a dream cliff. You chose to leap, symbolically, which, if you've ever dreamt of tripping on your office carpet and landing in your 7th grade classroom, doesn't totally track. But hey, Freud had a vibe. Then along came Carl Jung, our old shadow-loving friend. Jung didn't see dreams as secrets to decode, but as messages from the self. Falling, he believed, might be a descent into deeper understanding, like the ego surrendering to the collective unconscious. Dream drama as spiritual therapy. Meanwhile, Thomas Edison once claimed he used the moment between wake and sleep, the hypnagogic state, to solve problems. He would sit with steel balls in his hands, drift off, and when he began to nod off, the balls would drop, waking him up just as dream thoughts bloomed. He called it harvesting ideas. Most of us call it a nap with sound effects. Quirky tidbit. Salvador Dali did the same thing with keys instead of steel balls. He'd let them clatter onto a plate beside his chair, waking himself mid-dream to sketch the surreal imagery. Some of his melting clocks were likely born seconds after a hypnic jerk. That jolt you hate? He turned it into art. But it wasn't just inventors and artists. Even spiritual leaders got in on the dream architect game. Tibetan monks practiced dream yoga, a form of lucid dreaming where practitioners remain conscious inside the dream and steer it at will. Falling dreams? They became opportunities to train the mind to accept fear, to dissolve ego, to float instead of fall. They believed that if you mastered control of the dream fall, you could better control your reactions in waking life. Imagine you fall in the dream and instead of panicking, you hover. You breathe. You change the story. And there's the key. All these figures from Da Vinci to Dali, Tesla to Tibetan mystics weren't just dreaming. They were trying to build something inside their dreams, trying to sketch staircases into the void, trying to understand the script so they could rewrite the ending. And you? You're an architect too. Every night your brain constructs entire cities of imagination. Streets, people, buildings, laws of physics that sometimes include soup rain and ceiling cats. And every time you fall, you're falling through something you built. That's wild, right? You don't download these dreams. You don't stream them from a dream server in the cloud. They're yours, all of it. Even the gravity. Even the drop. And yet the dream often surprises you. Because no matter how clever your subconscious is, it still knows how to catch you off guard. It still knows how to leave you hanging mid-air, mid-thought, mid-fall. But here's the twist. What if you could learn to steer it? Lucid dreaming, being aware that you're dreaming, opens the door. Some dreamers train themselves to recognize signs that they're asleep. A missing reflection. A light switch that doesn't work. A hand with too many fingers. And when they recognize it, the rules change. They don't fall. They float, or fly, or hit the ground and bounce like a cartoon. Because suddenly the dream isn't the enemy. It's the sandbox. It's not easy. It takes practice. But it's been done. For centuries. Because falling isn't just a passive experience. It's a story. And stories, as you've seen, can be shaped. So tonight, as your mind builds its dream set and gravity prepares its next scene, remember the architects, the inventors, the monks, the surrealists and scientists, all of them tumbling through the dark with curiosity. You fall like they did, you wake like they did, and just maybe you'll learn to fly like they did. The wind picks up around you, but there is no wind. Just that odd sense of motion inside stillness. You recognize this feeling now. It's the beginning of another fall. But this time, something's different. Something feel aware. You're not flailing. You're watching. You've entered the lucid zone. Or at least you think you have. See, it's the classic lucid dream paradox. You know you're dreaming until you don't. You think you're in control. Until gravity reminds you who's boss. You reach out to fly, but instead you drop like a cartoon piano. This is lucid denial. The curious state of knowing you're dreaming, but still getting punked by your own subconscious. Lucid dreaming, as many sleep researchers agree, is a remarkable mental state. It's when the dreamer becomes conscious within the dream. They realize, hey, this doesn't make sense. This isn't reality. And then, if they're practiced enough, they can bend the rules. Fly, teleport, make pancakes appear out of nowhere. Usual wizard stuff. But the falling dream? That's harder to tame. Historians still argue whether early reports of lucid dreaming, from Aristotle to certain indigenous Australian dreamtime traditions, were truly the same as our modern understanding. But the experience has always been around. And falling dreams, frustratingly, often resist lucidity. You might be flying through a dreamscape, fully aware when suddenly something glitches. The sky turns sideways. The ground rushes upward. Your awareness flickers. And then you're falling, just like always. Why? One theory is that falling dreams trigger a fear response, strong enough to override lucidity. When your brain simulates a fall, it doesn't care that you know you're dreaming. It wants your heart to race. It wants your muscles to tense even if they can't move. It wants the experience to matter. Another possibility is that lucidity itself is fragile, like trying to balance a candle in a thunderstorm. It's there until it isn't. One strong gust of dream logic and poof, you're just another dream passenger again. Quirky tidbit, some lucid dreamers report being able to catch themselves during a fall. They turn the plummet into a glide, or a swim, or a sudden bounce. But many more report frustration. Every time they get lucid, gravity steals the show. It's like the dream has a hard-coded emergency override. You want control? Boom. Now you're plummeting through an elevator shaft made of confusion. Mainstream fact, research from sleep labs shows that lucidity tends to occur during later REM cycles, when dreams are longer and more vivid. But those same cycles also produce more intense emotions. More falling, more flying than failing scenarios. So it's no wonder the falling dream often hijacks the wheel. And then there's the dream logic itself. In most dreams, even when lucid, you're still inside the rules or what feel like rules. You might know you're dreaming, but part of you still plays along. You still expect things to behave somewhat like real life, which is why you assume that gravity exists, even here, even now. Even when you're aware and flying, and narrating your dream like Morgan Freeman with delusions of grandeur. And because you believe in gravity even just a little, the dream complies. It yanks you down. It pulls you from the sky like a balloon with commitment issues, and you fall. There's a psychological term for this. Expectation-shaping experience. Your mind, trained by a lifetime of physics and banana peels, expects falling to feel like falling. So even in a dream, that expectation is honored. Lucid dreaming in its highest form involves changing that expectation. Teaching your dream mind to disbelieve the fall. But that's hard. It's one thing to notice you're dreaming. It's another thing entirely to rewrite the laws of your inner universe. Most people can't, or they forget, or they hesitate for half a second and down they go. Still, lucid dreamers practice. They keep dream journals. They do reality checks during the day, like counting fingers or looking in mirrors, to build the habit of questioning their state. And when they finally recognize the dream, they train themselves to say, wait, I don't have to fall. I don't have to obey. Some succeed. Some wake up. Some fall anyway. Because even in lucid dreams, denial is powerful. And gravity? Even pretend gravity? It's persuasive. But there's a hidden lesson here. Sometimes the fall teaches you more than the flight. When you fall in a lucid dream, you're not failing. You're observing. You're testing the edges of your own subconscious. You're seeing what parts of yourself still believe in falling and why. Do you fall because you're scared? Do you fall because you expect to? Do you fall because part of you wants to? The dream doesn't answer. It just provides the scenario, over and over, until one night maybe you don't fall. Maybe you float or hover or land softly on a dream couch shaped like a cloud wearing socks. Or maybe you fall and choose to keep falling, peacefully, curiously, like a diver exploring the deep end of their own imagination. Because lucid or not, it's still your mind, still your gravity, still your dream. So if you find yourself aware inside the drop, don't panic. That's not failure, that's progress. The sky stretches out above you impossibly wide. You're weightless again, falling, or maybe floating, or maybe both. You're used to this by now. The hush of air, the abstract landscape blurring by, the idea of impact lurking somewhere far below. And still, as always, it never comes. Because in dream logic, the ground never wins. You know this by experience. You've fallen down stairwells, elevator shafts, rain gutters, chasms carved from memory and nonsense. And in every case, the story cuts short. The ground is there and not there. Threatening, but never triumphant. Let's unpack that. Why do you never hit the bottom? Why does the floor of the dream always remain just out of reach? First, some science. REM sleep, where the juiciest falling dreams usually happen, is designed to be immersive but not literal. Your brain is firing on all cylinders creatively, but your logic systems are parked somewhere with the engine off. That means the dream gets detailed, but not resolved. Your mind builds momentum, tension, sensation, but it rarely finishes the scene. It prefers ambiguity. Mainstream fact. Studies on REM dreams show they often end abruptly, especially during high emotional intensity. Why? Because your brain is more likely to jolt awake when your heart rate spikes, or your breathing changes, or something emotionally alarming happens, like, say, falling through the ceiling of your grandma's attic directly into outer space. So what happens? You wake up? Not on purpose. Your brain just pulls the plug before the impact, like a film director shouting cut, before the stunt dummy hits the pavement. Historians still argue whether the groundless fall has been interpreted consistently through the ages. Some cultures treated it as symbolic. Never reaching the ground meant the danger was unresolved. Others believed it was protection from trauma, a sign that the soul refused to accept defeat even in dreams. There's another theory, that the ground never appears because your mind doesn't know what hitting the ground would feel like in a dream. It's never experienced it. Not in that context. Not with dream physics. So rather than fake it, your subconscious skips the scene entirely. That's a fascinating idea. Your brain, master of fiction, unwilling to invent a moment it doesn't fully understand. Quirky tidbit. In Tibetan dream yoga traditions, students are taught to visualize landing softly when they fall in a dream. Not slamming, not waking, just touching down gently. They practice this again and again, learning to diffuse the fear of impact and some say of death. Because in those teachings, the fall isn't just symbolic of fear. It is fear. And the ground, it's transformation. But in your dreams, the ground is Schrodinger's tile. Always there, always not. It looms and vanishes. You brace, you prepare, and then nothing. No pain, no impact, just silence. It's poetic, really. The idea that your subconscious is committed to suspense, that your fall exists not to resolve, but to pause. The dream holds you in midair endlessly, like a story that refuses to finish its sentence. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the falling dream isn't about landing at all. Maybe it's about living in that moment right before the end. That breathless, weightless, what happens now? Tension that holds more meaning than the ground ever could. Think about it. When you fall in a dream, every part of you is awake, even if you're technically asleep. Your senses are heightened. Your body thinks it's flying sideways through time. Your awareness spikes. And in that moment, your brain is laser focused, not on hitting, but on the possibility of hitting. That's what makes the falling dream so powerful. It's not a story about endings, it's a story about almost impact, almost fear, almost understanding, and always awakening. It's what makes the dream stick with you. Not the fall itself, but the lack of closure, the refusal to conclude. Falling dreams are the cliffhanger your brain writes for itself. A loop with no punchline, an email with no send button, a floor you never touch, and you, dear dreamer, are left suspended in that half-second forever. But maybe, just maybe, that's the best part. Because hitting the ground means it's over. Hitting the ground means certainty, finality, an answer. And your brain doesn't want that. It thrives in the unfinished, the mysterious, the dramatic. Falling is tension. Falling is curiosity. Falling is alive. So the ground, it never wins. Because it never even shows up. And maybe it doesn't need to. You're back in bed now, though you never really left. The blanket shifts slightly as your breath slows, deepens. That familiar afterglow of dreams clings to your skin, like a whisper of motion long after stillness. And maybe, just maybe, you remember falling. Again. Because that's what this has always been about, hasn't it? That strange borrowed gravity. That internal tripwire that pulls you down and out just before resolution. One moment you're balanced on the edge of something you can't name. And the next you're blinking into the darkness of your bedroom, your heart a quiet metronome of mystery. So here we are, at the boring truth beneath it all. No monsters, no hidden dimensions, no ancient curses buried under your pillow. Just your brain being dramatic. One mainstream conclusion: falling dreams are most likely caused by a mix of physical sensations, muscles relaxing, shifts in breathing, changes in temperature, blended with your brain's incredible ability to spin a narrative out of anything. Your leg twitches? That's a cliff. Your body relaxes too quickly? Elevator shaft. Gravity becomes a mood, and your subconscious writes a whole plot. Quirky tidbit. In one small study, researchers found that people who frequently experienced falling dreams were no more stressed than anyone else. They weren't more anxious, more regretful, or more chaotic. They were just dreamers, with a flair for the theatrical. Historians still argue whether we give dreams too much credit or not enough. Are they the whispers of our deeper selves? Are they the nervous doodles of a bored brain on low power mode? No one really knows. But here's what we do know. The fall is universal. Children dream of falling before they dream of flying. Seniors report the same jolt after decades of sleep. Cultures separated by continents and centuries all report it. The drop, the rush, the sudden wake-up. And always, the missing ground. Maybe it's not a glitch. Maybe it's a design. Maybe the falling dream is your brain's way of reminding you that not everything needs a tidy ending, that you can live in uncertainty, that you can feel something deeply even if you never finish the story. Because the truth is, your mind is too complex, too playful, too gloriously messy to give you one reason for the fall. It's not always guilt, or stress, or spirit walking through your own metaphorical basement. Sometimes it's just noise. Random, beautiful, haunting noise. And sometimes it's more. Sometimes the fall is you letting go of control, of logic, of gravity itself. And when you wake up again, you've changed. Just a little. A smudge on your soul where the ground almost was. So tonight, as your breath slows and the world fades, if you find yourself falling once more, don't fight it. Lean in. Trust the air. The ground's not coming. And that's the best part. Shh, you've made it. The story is told, the mystery explored, the fall, still falling. And now there's nothing left to do but rest. Let your breath soften, no rush, no effort. Let your hands unclench, your jaw slacken, your chest rise and fall like slow waves, whatever noise the day brought with it. Plans, emails, worries, regrets, none of it made it through the door to this dream. You've left all of that behind. For now, this is all there is, the hush of your room, the quiet hum of air moving through the night, and the knowledge that the ground never showed up again. You're safe. You're still. You've walked with ancient monks and modern scientists. You've tumbled through myth and biology, and you've floated on the edge of something unspeakably human. Falling in dreams is one of the most shared, intimate experiences in the world. A nightly postcard from your subconscious that says, I'm still here, still learning, still dreaming. And maybe that's enough. No answers required, no conclusions demanded, just that familiar tug toward the unknown, again and again in the silence of sleep. So curl in a little deeper, let your spine sink into the mattress. Let your eyelids grow heavy, not from exhaustion, but from surrender. You are allowed to drift, to fall, and to never land. Good night, sweet dreams.